Welcome. You're listening to The Aligned Self, Conversations in Creating a Conscious and Abundant Life. This is Daniel Denovi. I'll be your guide and host. Let's see just where we can take this. Hello, friend, and welcome back to the conversation. Today is a special event. It marks the 400th episode of The Aligned Self. And I have to admit, it boggles my mind a little bit that I actually produced 400 episodes. Not that I couldn't, not that I didn't have enough material, because I have enough material to continue to talk, continue to produce episodes. But I hardly feel like I've done 400 episodes. It just doesn't seem like it's been that many. That's like 150 hours of listening to me. And you might say, well, I haven't listened to every episode, so it hasn't been 150 hours, but many of you have listened to every episode, or the majority of the episodes, because I have received many emails, many messages, just how the podcast and the material contained therein has impacted your life. I treasure each and every one of those messages, because frankly, I'm here for you. I'm here sharing for you. Now, I get a certain amount of pleasure out of it, but it's really the impact that I get to make. Some of the ideas that I share, I stole from other people. I've been doing this for over 30 years. I've been on the personal development path for over 50 years. So I have a body of work. I have a lot of things rattling around in my head. And so it's been actually very nice to be able to get it out of my head and out into the ether, out into the airwaves, with the main intention of offering up information, offering up a perspective that you can take, you can steal, you can utilize, and put into practice in your life. There was a quote that I came across when I was in my 20s that said, steal the best and leave the rest. Steal all the good ideas, take them as your own, put them into practice, utilize them. Anything that doesn't necessarily work for you, leave to the wayside. But the interesting thing is sometimes we prejudge ideas. We discard them before we actually put them into practice. Discard them before we even really entertain the idea. It doesn't fit our current concept. And, the confirmation bias, if it doesn't fit our current beliefs, then we tend not to pay attention. We tend to discard that information. It's not for me. It's not important. It doesn't resonate with me. Well, over the years, it's been interesting. I've bought thousands of books. And literally thousands of books, and some of them I've opened thinking they were going to contain pearls of wisdom. And I start reading it, and it's like, oh, this isn't for me. I don't know why I wasted the money. But it does reside on my bookshelf, only for me to go back 5 years, 10 years later sometimes, and I open it, and suddenly it makes perfect sense. It fits where I currently am right now. And when that happens, it totally fascinates me. Just the idea that when I first encountered the book, I did not have the bandwidth. I did not have the ability to perceive the information in a way where it was relevant to me. But that's the thing, isn't it? We are always growing. We are always expanding our concept of what's possible. And that brings me to the topic of today's episode. What is the one constraint? What is the thing that stops you from being all you can be, that stops you from having the life that you truly desire? There is one thing that has gotten in the way over and over and over again. It is the one thing that limits your life. That, my friend, is you. It's your self-concept, the concept that you have of yourself, of what's possible, of what you're capable of what actually fits your life, your thinking patterns, the frameworks that you use and apply to life, how to perceive reality. Because, you don't pay attention to everything. There's millions and millions of stimuli, bits of information coming at you at any given moment, but you are selective. You only select certain parts of that information to get into your head. Your emotional life, how you feel from one moment to the next, is decided, chosen by you, for better or worse, because how you feel at any given moment is actually the caboose of the train of thought that runs through your mind that precedes that feeling. That feeling is the end result of how you're processing information, how you're choosing to think about certain events. Now, there's some psychologists that say it's irresponsible to put the responsibility on people for their lives, for how they feel. Because in some ways it's true. When people hear that you're responsible for your life, you are the one aspect that is limiting all your behavior. You are the one aspect that is limiting your life, limiting your success, limiting your happiness. That's a heavy burden for some people to bear. But I'm not blaming anybody. And that's what a lot of psychologists think. Oh, we don't want to blame people for their life. Well, see, this is part of it. You get to choose to be at the effect of life, to be victimized by certain circumstances, or you can be responsible for everything that happens, that you can positively respond to whatever life hands you, even some of the stuff that most people call traumatic. You see, it doesn't matter what happens to you. What matters is how you choose to interpret that circumstance and what it means about you. Now, I realize that this is similar to a topic that I did just recently, that you live your whole life in your head. You cannot not get out of your head, meaning that you process your entire experience through your five senses, then you interpolate it, you interpret it, you process it in a way to arrive at a result, typically a feeling state on how you feel about circumstances, how you feel about life, or what it means about you. We are a meaning-making machine. The reason I'm talking about this again today, which I've talked about this again and again and again over the last 400 episodes, it's kind of been the central theme. You are at the center of your life. You are at the center of your experience. You are the arena in which life takes place. Your experience of life is totally a projection of you. Your world is a mirror of your mind. This is a central theme to everything I do. And from my perspective, there's no blame in it. It's basically you either get the result you want or you don't. But you taking responsibility, you being responsible for your life, you being at cause for your life, means that you have agency. To me, that's everything. You can choose a different response. You can be different. But you want to hear the reality of it all? My experience working with people is that the majority of people have never actually made the decision, the commitment to live an epic life. You see, from my perspective, your life is the epic adventure. You have the opportunity to be anything, do anything that you want. You are the one that determines the ceiling to your potential. When you say, I can't, you determine your capacity. You determine how much is too much. And most people don't even realize that they're limiting themselves. I was 27 years old when I made the hardcore decision to not be ordinary. I did not want to live an ordinary life, a mediocre life. And for me, that decision changed everything. I realized that I had errors in my thinking. I was just looking at the results that I was getting, and obviously, I was at cause. I was creating what was showing up, and I definitely had limiting beliefs. I had errors in my thinking. I was making assumptions about the way things were, about the world, that just weren't so. And so I dedicated the next 3 years to really learn how to begin running my brain, mastering my mind, mastering my emotions. And when I say I spent the next 3 years beginning to learn, I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have a guide. So I was basically on my own, and I made some missteps. And so while I spent the next 3 years, getting the fundamentals down, learning how to run my brain, how did I think? How do I process a thought? How do I change a thought? How do I change a belief? It took me another 20 years to really integrate it into my life, really, take it to the next level. Because like I said, I did not have a mentor. I did not have a guide. There was no schematic. There was no blueprint. There was no framework for what I was up to. So if you want to live the life of your dreams, if you want a life that you love and are proud to be part of, then, my friend, I'm going to suggest that you invest yourself in learning how to run your brain, how to master your mind. I remember when I was in my teens and I was reading the Bible and I was reading about King Solomon. He was having a conversation with God, and I guess they had conversations on a regular basis. Well, God says to Solomon, you can have anything you want. You can have unlimited wealth, unlimited health, or wisdom. Which do you select? Whatever you select, I will provide. And Solomon thought about it for a minute and said, I'll take wisdom. And God said, good choice. Because you chose wisdom, you will have unlimited wealth and you will have unlimited health. You see, with wisdom, you can have access to everything. And so I made a decision at that moment that I wanted wisdom. And so I learned self-hypnosis. I started exploring the inner dimensions of my psyche, developing a rapport with my other-than-conscious mind, which helped my intuition emerge. Then I began reading as much as I could. I read about all kinds of topics, about men and women. That was interesting. As a man, I was continually told that women are hard to figure out. They're not that hard to figure out. And what's interesting and what staggers a lot of people's minds is that men and women are more alike than we are different. But I studied that. I studied all about women. Oddly enough, I know more about a woman's menstrual cycle than a lot of women do. But I studied that. I studied health. I studied the body. I studied success. I studied emotions, psychology, sociology, philosophy. I wanted to know everything. I've always been extremely curious. And I know you are listening because part of you is also extremely curious. You want the best life for you. You are seeking wisdom. But I don't yet know if you've made the full commitment to actually obtain it. You see, whether we know it or not, we are always making a choice for mediocrity or for greatness. And I can speak from personal experience that when we seek mediocrity, not necessarily consciously, but when we make choices that lead to mediocrity, we are less than fulfilled. In the context of seeking wisdom, I became very intentional about seeking wisdom. I made it a study. Most people are hobbyists. They develop themselves in their spare time. Do you have a library? In my office right now, I have about $3,000 in books, which is about 120 books. In storage back in Michigan, I have 30 boxes of books. I currently live in Texas and have been here for 17 years, and I have yet to go back and get all my books. But those books represent about a $30,000 investment. But they don't represent the audio programs, the cassette programs, back when there were cassettes, or the workshops and seminars and advanced trainings. I have made a considerable investment in time and energy and resources to obtain wisdom. It was important to me because I knew that I lived my whole life in my head. I wanted to know the secrets of the universe. And one of the things that I found interesting as I began studying is that some of these concepts, a lot of these ideas, were like 2,500 years old. Patanjali wrote the Yoga Sutras in the 2nd century BCE. Marcus Aurelius and the Stoics lived about 300 or 400 years after that. Then Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. As I read about these topics, as I investigated these ideas, it occurred to me that I'd learned virtually none of this in my school days. In my late 20s and 30s, I started exposing myself more to metaphysics and the New Age, which was really the old age. It was the old concepts that were brought into the New Age. But I was very aware that mankind was essentially in the position of reinventing the wheel all over again and all over again. We weren't really standing on the shoulders of giants. A few of us were, but it surprised me that we were never taught as kids or young adults how to regulate our emotional system, how to manage stress, how to set goals, intentions, and go after them, how to manifest. And manifestation is not some ooey-wooey. It is a very essential skill in being a human because we are always manifesting. We're not always manifesting what we want, but we always manifest how we're being. There are essential lessons in being a human being that I espouse on this podcast, and once you know it, and it changes your life forever. Simple ideas that were never, ever passed along. And that's why I'm doing the podcast, because a lot of these ideas have been lost or not necessarily available to people in the greater fashion. Now, I'm not the only one talking about this, but you found me. You found me for a reason. We're on the same page. We're kindred spirits. But this passing along of knowledge, passing along wisdom, this is why I created the Nexus of Transformation, my online platform. And I've done the courses, why I became a coach and a teacher. I got tired of people not having access to fundamental concepts that will change their life, radically change their satisfaction, change their happiness. And so I'm on a mission in the last quarter of my life, or last half of my life, because I plan on living quite a while. But if I don't, I don't. But I have grand plans. I want to pass the torch of wisdom along. Here's George Bernard Shaw's quote that I just love. I want to be thoroughly used up when I die. For the harder I work, the more I live. I rejoice in life for its own sake. Life is no brief candle to me. It is sort of a splendid torch which I have a hold of for the moment, and I want to make it burn as brightly as possible before handing it over to future generations. So I ask you, if you look at your current course of life, your current investment in yourself, in your development, in your wisdom, are you going to end up at the end of your life thoroughly used up, coming close to reaching the limits of your capacity, of your potential? Or will you have barely scratched the surface? If I told you it really would only take a year of focused intent, focused learning, to learn the fundamentals, the essential processes of how to run your brain, how to be emotionally happy, emotionally regulated, could you invest the time? Would you be willing to invest 1 year to claim the rest of your life as yours? Unfortunately, a lot of people have resigned themselves to a life less than stellar, less than what they're capable of. And that's because they have bought into a story of limitation. And they say to themselves, maybe for other people, maybe for them, but not for me. Remember in the beginning I said the limitation, the constraint on you having everything you want in life is you. It's your thinking, it's your stories, it's your frameworks. And so I'm begging you not to live in resignation. And I'm going to share with you a quote from Henry David Thoreau. The mass of people lead lives of quiet desperation. What is called resignation is confirmed desperation. From the desperate city, you go into the desperate country and have to console yourself with the bravery of minks and muskrats. A stereotyped but unconscious despair is concealed even under what are called the games and amusements of mankind. There is no play in them, for this comes after work, but it is a characteristic of wisdom not to do desperate things. Here's another quote from Thoreau. I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life, and see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived. I did not wish to live what was not life. Living is so dear, nor did I wish to practice resignation, unless it was quite necessary. I wanted to live deep and suck out the marrow of life, to live so sturdily and Spartan-like, to put to rout all that was not life, to cut a broad swath and shave close, to drive life into a corner and reduce it to its lowest terms. Wayne Dyer, don't die with your music still in you. So at the very least, the message of this episode is to invest in yourself. Learn how to run your brain, because you live your whole life in your head. The other purpose to this is for me to invite you into the Nexus of Transformation, my online membership program, where I have a number of courses. There's a community. Now, one of the courses is the essentials of NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, which when I was 28 was the beginning of me learning how to run my brain. It is essentially software for the mind. But since I've been on this path for 50 years, what is contained in the Nexus of Transformation is 50 years of wisdom. And what's exciting is I'm not done. I am continually learning, adding new material, and I will be in the Nexus for a long time to come. And if you decide to join me, if you want to seek wisdom, if you want to go on this journey with me, I'm asking you to invest a year, a minimum of a year. There's currently 5 courses inside the Nexus you have access to, and I've been told by marketing experts and some of my friends that I could make more money by selling each individual course all by itself. But I'm giving you all 5 for the price of 1 course. Not to mention ongoing training, conversations, audio programs, Q&As. You'll have access to me inside the Nexus. Search for the link in the show notes or go to yesdaniel.com to get involved today. There's a few founding member spots left, which will lock in your price forever. As soon as those spots are filled, the price will be increasing. It will be going up. So are you ready to claim your life? Are you ready to claim your mind as yours? Are you used by your mind, or do you use your mind? Well, until next time, this is your friend and host, Daniel Danovi, urging you to follow your bliss. Live your life from inner signals. Be inner directed as you engage in the epic adventure.